Space Shuttle Mission 125 was one of the most difficult and the most dangerous.
Liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
As well as one of the most important.
It was our destiny to get this thing done.
At stake were not only the lives of the crew,
there's a hole in the cloth right in the palm,
but possibly the most famous scientific instrument ever created.
Hubble prepare for glory.
With high-definition footage shot by the astronauts themselves.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
This is the inside story of the rescue of the Hubble Space Telescope.
Atlantis OTC.
On the 11th of May 2009 at the Kennedy Space Center, Florida, the crew of the Space Shuttle Atlantis was about to make history.
Atlantis astronauts now are
560 kilometers above the Earth, the Hubble Space Telescope was in trouble. The instrumentation was breaking down, and power systems were failing. If the crew couldn't rescue it, the telescope would die. But if they were to save Hubble, they'd have to go as far and as high as any mission since the moon landings, and perform some of the riskiest repair work ever attempted in space.
Houston flight.
Houston flight is go.
Saving the space telescope was only part of the mission. They also planned to make it better than ever.
On this mission, we're going to put Hubble in a condition that it will have never been in before, with a scientific instrument that will have unprecedented sensitivity to discover new things.
It's a great day to go fly.
Why am I prepared to risk my life for a telescope? I think that we're doing it for the better of mankind, but for me personally, I do it because I really love my job.
10, 9, 8, 7, go.
NASA rated this final flight to Hubble as the most risky shuttle mission ever flown.
Liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis. Final visit to enhance the vision of Hubble into the deepest grandeur of our universe.
Go at throttle up. Houston, Atlantis copies. Go at throttle up.
At over 28,000 kilometers per hour, Atlantis dumped its main fuel tank and soared into the freezing vacuum of space.
Atlantis, 2-engine Maroon.
Houston, Atlantis copies. 2-engine Maroon.
2 out P is a deucer only, and the Ace of One.
On board were high-definition cameras that would provide those of us on Earth with a unique and intimate glimpse into the heart of this critical mission.
We're in the mid-deck of Space Shuttle Atlantis. My buddy John Grunsfeld over here. But the person we want to talk to is behind the camera, and now going to be on camera. That's Megan MacArthur, who is our flight engineer.
How was that ride uphill?
That was fun, wasn't it?
Those 3 G's kicked in.
Oh, yeah, baby. That was fun, though, wasn't it?
Man.
I'll remember that.
It was awesome.
Mike Massimino had been with NASA 13 years. This was his second mission to the Hubble Space Telescope.
I was really excited to get a chance to go into space on any mission, but to go on a Hubble mission for me was a little more special. Getting the opportunity to work on the Hubble Space Telescope is really a dream come true.
We gonna get it all done?
Yes, absolutely, 100%, and we're going to have fun doing it.
Excellent.
But before the crew could rendezvous with the still distant telescope, they needed to answer a crucial question. Had the heat shield on the underbelly of the shuttle survived the launch?
Getting started on OBSS unberth.
That's a big event.
Yeah.
We're doing inspections of the orbiter right now, the space shuttle with the inspection boom, so it's a busy day, and things are just going to keep getting busier.
Mission Control was checking that the shuttle had not suffered any damage from flying debris during liftoff. This was of critical importance to those on board. Any damage to the heat shield could mean the shuttle might not survive re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. This is exactly what destroyed the shuttle Columbia as it returned to Earth in 2003. If Atlantis had suffered similar damage, the crew would have a lot more to worry about than repairing the Hubble Space Telescope. The word came from Mission Control, and it was not good. Mike and the crew discovered that the shuttle's right wing had been hit.
I'm wondering, is this going to impact our spacewalks? And then you think a little bit harder and you say, never mind the spacewalks, is this going to impact our ability to get home?
Good day, everybody. I'm Nora O'Donnell, live in New York. Breaking news on MSNBC. Engineers at the Johnson Space Center are evaluating a small area of damage, tile damage on the shuttle's Atlantis right wing.
The crew had to sit tight and wait for word from the ground.
The real proof if the space shuttle's okay is when you come down and touch down on the runway. That's when you know for sure that it's working for you.
The bad news was that they'd need to look at the shuttle again before risking the searing temperatures of re-entry. The good news was that the damage wouldn't impact their ability to fix Hubble. The crew prepared to set a course for the distant telescope.
Atlantis, Houston, good config for the burn.
Okay, ready? Go. Ready?
But actually catching up with Hubble would take some doing.
We're 8,000 miles behind Hubble. We're 180 miles high, Hubble is at 350 and traveling at over 5 miles a second. We're gonna have to chase him around the Earth a bunch of times before we reel him in.
As Atlantis closed in on the space telescope, the astronauts got as comfortable as they could.
Okay, so Megan's now fishing through. We keep getting interrupted by the ground. But
This is what I was looking for, ravioli.
oh, man, it was great.
Very tasty.
I just had some.
The crew settled into their routine as Atlantis headed deeper into space. Hubble lay at the very limit of the shuttle's range. To get there, Atlantis had to cross a zone that was infested by millions of pieces of man-made space debris. Every one moving at over 27,000 kilometers per hour.
We're moving away, I see.
Even a very small piece of debris can do some serious damage. So this is a concern not only for the shuttle, but also for us while we're outside spacewalking.
Space debris can kill an astronaut. So why would they risk their lives to repair a telescope? Because Hubble is no ordinary telescope. It has opened our eyes and our minds to the universe around us and shown us wonders we never knew existed. Hubble has revealed the age of the universe, dating the Big Bang to 13.7 billion years ago. It watched as comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 crashed into Jupiter. It helped prove the existence of supermassive black holes, and Hubble's ultra-deep field image showed us thousands of unknown galaxies, all the way back to the beginning of time. But 19 years in the extreme environment of space had taken their toll, and if nothing was done, our greatest eye on the universe would have gone blind forever.
We want to make sure we do our job right.
If we didn't get up there, the telescope would continue to decay, its science instruments would stop working, and then it would just become a giant monument to the space program orbiting the Earth.
As the rescue mission continued, a photographer in Florida captured this extraordinary image of Atlantis crossing in front of the sun at 21 times the speed of sound.
We'd like you to come left, full crosshairs.
3 days and 1.6 million kilometers into their voyage, they finally spotted the telescope.
Hey, Houston, Atlantis can report that they're looking out the COAS. We see that star approaching from the east.
Excellent. Hey, that's terrific news.
We approached Hubble at night, and as we come up to it, it almost seemed lonely out there all by itself in space.
We'd like you to come up.
We were happy to keep it company for 5 days.
Finally, they could see Hubble, but next, they had to catch it.
I'm trying to get it, man.
Mission Commander Scooter Altman is one of the world's top pilots. He performed Tom Cruise's aerial stunts in the movie Top Gun. This was much harder.
Scooter's got to perform the maneuver of his life to get close to the scope without ramming it, so that Megan can grapple it with the robotic arm.
21 Charlie, flight controller powers on.
Commander Altman took manual control of Atlantis.
Okay, ready for the item 19?
I am.
Mission Control could only watch and wait.
Okay, guys, let's leave him alone now. Enough, let's let him fly it. I just need you to tell me when we're ready to grab it.
Target's still moving slightly right. Sun is coming into our field of view.
560 minus 1.
But the shuttle was closing in a little too fast, and the $5 billion telescope was drifting off course.
So a little hot.
Time to get hot.
4 degrees left.
The crew came all this way to fix Hubble, but if they weren't careful, they could damage it even more.
You know, they say failure's not an option. For me, failure was just unthinkable.
"560 kilometers above the Earth, Commander Scooter Altman was attempting to bring the shuttle Atlantis alongside the Hubble Space Telescope in order to begin their critical repair mission.
I don't see anything.
600 feet, Scooter minus 1. A little hot.
This was easier said than done. Atlantis was closing in too fast, and the telescope had drifted out of alignment.
Drew, you're not seeing it slow down, are you?
We're not slowing down that much, though, here.
Target's still moving slightly right.
Scooter has got to fly the space shuttle in formation with the Hubble Space Telescope at 17,500 miles an hour. That's one of the things that makes it a little more dangerous.
I see us in attitude. Okay, I think it's going to come down pretty quick, but I do have some right pulses to put in. Here comes...
The telescope, even though it's big, it's in space, so that if you knock it, it could tumble and get out of control, and it could be a big mess.
Okay, I think it's starting to come back to the right. Here comes another pulse.
She's in 138 feet going in. Copy 138 feet.
So a little hot. Okay, here's the braking pulse.
An hour later, the team was still struggling, but the telescope was finally close enough to grab.
Okay, we copy 100 feet and ready for the item 21.
Here comes...
It was up to mission specialist Megan MacArthur to catch it, with the shuttle's robotic arm.
We have the telescope in the RMS end effector. Reggie, we copy, and we're pulling down the KU right now, and we see that. Thank you.
Here's a B right.
You're centered right now.
She's got to go quick enough so that Hubble doesn't start drifting away, but not too fast so that she knocks into it and sends it off spinning.
Yep.
These targets dropping.
4 degrees left. Radar says... Okay.
Houston, Atlantis. Hubble has arrived on board Atlantis with the arm. Atlantis, Houston, we copy. Nice job, Megan. Nice job on the Proxap's flying as well. It's great to be back with the telescope.
I was just overjoyed that we had spent all this time and effort and that it paid off. If you look outside that window,
I see Hubble.
there's a telescope out there.
Coming up, getting closer, checking attitude, getting out of control.
Check your attitude, Scooter.
It looks good now. I think we're stable. I feel as if I'm stabilized.
Oh, good grapple.
While the flight deck relived their experience, back in the midsection, veteran John Grunsfeld and rookie Drew Feustel prepared for the mission's first spacewalk.
Drew is a first-time space flyer. John Grunsfeld has been to space 5 times, the last 3 of which have been to the Hubble Space Telescope. He is the chief Hubble hugger on our crew. And John, this is like spacewalk number 714? No, spacewalk number 6. Okay, great.
I'm really looking forward to going out, putting in the wide field camera. What's wide field camera going to do?
Unlock the secrets of the universe.
That's right. Unlock the secrets of the universe.
That's
Right.
The wide field camera 3 will be much more sensitive than any other instruments we've put into the telescope over a very wide range of colors, from ultraviolet to the infrared with one instrument. We've never been able to do that before. And by being more sensitive, it allows us to see further back in time to dimmer and dimmer objects that are further and further away.
Scientists even hope to capture galactic events from over 13.2 billion years ago, nearer to the Big Bang than ever before.
Certainly bring it in to...
The team had spent over 2 years practicing for this spacewalk.
Here's my coolant.
But the rehearsal pool is far from the perilous vacuum of space.
Okay, this is the big one. Don the helmet, check locked.
No good, buddy. Wide field camera 3 is all yours.
I'm gonna go get it.
Go get it.
We're gonna make it happen.
This is his first time in orbit, first time in space. First time he's going to spacewalk, and he's going to do it on the Hubble Space Telescope.
Club is open, Mass. This is great, John. We see you coming out. You can egress. Coming out. Ready, Drew? I'm ready, John. Let's go do this. Oh, this is fantastic. You're going to love it, Drew.
As the astronauts ventured slowly toward the telescope, Massimino guided them every step of the way.
DGT for the ALAX, Drew, when you're ready. And that guy's not staying, so...
Working with limited resources in the harsh environment of space meant that each spacewalk had to keep to a strict schedule. Any unforeseen delays could mean that some repairs wouldn't get done.
Drew Feustel now out of the hatch.
Towards my feet. All right. Alpha handle will be next.
Feustel's first job seemed easy, just undoing the main bolt that held the old camera in place. But even in space, what can go wrong will go wrong.
130. Yes, the MTL is slipping. Mass, I put in 3 attempts and see no motion on the A-latch bolt.
The bolt was frozen, and nothing Feustel did could budge it.
If Drew cannot get the old wide field out, the new wide field stays in the carrier and comes back home to Earth, where it doesn't do us any good.
This was the very first job of the first spacewalk, and the astronauts were facing total failure.
About 3 MTL slips on each attempt and see no motion on the A-latch bolt.
If they couldn't undo it, they couldn't install the new camera. The billion-dollar mission was stuck on a $10 bolt.
Yeah, it is still slipping.
Planet Houston, take the ratchet to clockwise and just see if we can break potential stiction.
Inside the shuttle, astronaut Mike Massimino could only watch.
It's the most important scientific objective that we have on the flight, and it's not working.
In desperation, the astronauts resorted to a series of more powerful tools.
So we ought to try that short adjustable.
But they had to be careful not to use too much force.
Okay, Mass, I just want to understand how far can we go with this, and what are the implications if I over-torque and break the bolt? Sure you want to know. Okay, but I think we understand that if it breaks, then wide field stays in.
These engineers and scientists have been with the telescope their whole career. Their life's work has been working on the Hubble.
Go ahead and put it in there if you would.
They must be going out of their minds, working out whether or not they're going to get their new instrument in the telescope or not.
We'll have them do that.
For 3 hours, the bolt fought all attempts to free it.
From the ratchet.
Time was running out.
Okay, Megan, 2 feet away.
The final option was to apply unlimited power and risk breaking it.
I see our next is to remove the CMTL and try it without an MTL at all. Okay, Megan, 2 feet away, please.
The next step will be to apply more force without any limiter.
The telescope's future hung on a single bolt.
Thanks. Okay, here we go. I think I got it. It turned. It definitely turned. Yep, it turned. And it's turning easily now. Well, this has been in there for 16 years, Drew. It didn't want to come out. Just decided to be a recalcitrant teenager. Go for the maneuver, Megan.
Copy, going to apex, sir.
For the Hubble scientists, releasing that bolt also released the new wide-field camera to unlock more of the secrets of the universe.
5, 4, 3, stop, 2.
Motion stopped.
That's awesome.
In some ways, that's part of the fun of spaceflight, is that you don't know what challenges are going to arise, and you work together to fix them.
We were very gratified that we did our job well, and from what we could tell, we hooked everything up correctly.
By the time the astronauts had completed their work, their marathon spacewalk had lasted over 7 hours.
We got to Hubble and gave Hubble a hug in traditional Hubble fashion. Hubble threw us a few curves. Whole team.
Great job today.
On board here, on board Atlantis, and of course on the ground.
I figured after we had the trouble on this duck bolt and we were able to get around that, we've had our problems for the mission, and the rest of it will go smoothly. But in the back of my mind, I figured, not so fast. You never know what's going to happen.
Massimino's instincts were to prove eerily prophetic.
It won't sit flush on the plate. If I get, it's kind of rocking on it, as if there was something underneath it.
Hubble was not going to make it easy. It was the morning of the second spacewalk.
Straighten out your leg. It's just under my toes. Right.
Astronauts Mike Massimino and Michael Good headed out to work on the Hubble Space Telescope.
As soon as I stuck my little head out the hatch.
And it is a beautiful day outside.
There are no words to describe it, how beautiful the Earth is.
Welcome to the wonderful world of working in a vacuum. Okay, I'm going to hop up in the arm. All right.
The astronauts needed to replace 3 rate-sensing units, gyroscopic instruments that stabilize Hubble's gaze on the stars.
The reason we can get those really cool images is that the telescope can point itself very accurately. As it's whipping around the Earth 17,500 miles an hour, it's able to hold that position.
Each stabilizing unit sat on a set of guide pins deep inside the telescope. To change them, Massimino had to crawl inside Hubble's cramped interior.
Mike Massimino positioned for the first rate sensor unit change out.
Okay. Hey, Mike, I got it. All yours. Very nice. Okay, it's coming in, Mike. That's it. Good job. Okay, CPRQ. Perfect. Mag, I'm ready to maneuver.
The first one was easy.
Thank you very much. Okay, man.
But the second unit refused to cooperate.
This one feels different than the last one. It won't sit flush on the plate. If I get, it's kind of rocking on it.
The crew members are having a little bit of trouble seating the new unit into its plate.
As if there was something underneath it. I just can't seem to get all 3 corners at the same time. The bolt should pull them in, though, if you're aligned.
The clock is going, and the seconds, minutes are ticking along there. Our spacesuit is going to run out of resources, and we won't be able to stay out that long. We've got to get it in fairly quickly, or else the telescope won't work.
After 4 hours and no success, they were forced to give up. Instead, they tried to fit an old, rebuilt spare unit that was stored in the payload bay.
Mike Massimino holding his position inside the telescope at the install location.
Mike endured the cramped conditions for another 90 minutes before he successfully installed the spare.
Mike, that feels solid. Okay? Yeah, that bolt is in. Great job, Mike. Closure.
But Massimino and Good had been out so long, they were running low on oxygen. They had to go back to the airlock to get more.
I was going to get too low, too close for comfort if we went much longer without me recharging it.
Mask coming into the air.
Crew members are an hour and a half behind the timeline at this point.
Before the crew could finish, they also had to replace Hubble's 20-year-old batteries.
I was pretty tired, and I knew we were running long on time, and we didn't have any options for any more sticky bolts or things not fitting.
Massimino has engaged all of the bolts on the battery module.
At last, finally, something went as planned on this spacewalk.
You can go get the left door. Don't do that.
With their work done, the exhausted crew closed up Hubble for the night.
Okay, Mass. Bueno.
Yeah.
EVA-2. What do you think?
Nothing was going right. You know, right from the beginning, nothing fit. We got that stuff, they got geniuses figuring stuff out to like the nanometer, right? Or whatever, you know, and it's still not fitting. We're both trying stuff. I don't know what's going on out there. Somehow I think it all worked.
Let's see.
There is a God.
Bueno, your first spacewalk, what do you think of looking at the Earth?
Oh my gosh, there was one moment when we went over Kenya, and John mentioned it, and I looked down and we were just going into sunset, and there was lightning right on the border of day and night. It was incredibly beautiful. I think I was upside down on the arm, so I was looking straight down on the Earth, and it couldn't have been more beautiful. It was really impressive.
That's all right, I like my pants on.
So what did you think of that view, the view up at the battery install?
At that point, I think I had my eyes closed. It was dark, it was night, and I was just wanted to get inside at that point, so I don't think I looked.
Okay.
I saw the battery, though.
Okay, boys.
Let me close with this. It was great being out there. It was great being out there with Mike and working with Megan and Drew and John and you, Ray J and Scooter. It's also kind of nice to be back in here right now.
Yeah,
after all of that out there, you know?
5 days into the mission and having completed 2 spacewalks, the crew took some time for relaxation and to play some space games.
I'm ready. Let's hope for the best here. We're taking pictures.
I wasn't planning on this sort of demonstration. You can't edit this, you know. Oh, that's pretty good.
Hey, Ray J, what's going on?
Well, I'm in the WCS, the potty, the space potty.
The space potty.
Yes. And you can guess what this is for.
So when that's on, what happens?
Well, all I can tell you about going to the bathroom in space is suction.
Hey, what about the solids? Where does that go?
I wouldn't look too deep, but there's a hole right here. And a seat. With these 2 handles you put on your legs to hold you down.
Ah, good point. Why do you need to be held down?
Because you're floating.
Ah, so everything floats in space.
Everything floats? I mean everything.
Scooter's corner, and he's actually in his real corner. Where are you sitting right now?
Oh, wait a minute, I got a gun in my mouth.
What are you going to do with
I
that?
gotta get rid of that. I put it under the dash, maybe the next guy.
There you have it. All right, is there any other gum down there, or are you the first guy?
I'm the first.
All right, there
Atlantis
you
is
go.
free.
All right, so the next commander of Atlantis, don't worry about bringing gum. We got some for you.
After the problems with the first 2 spacewalks, the next day's work began with a simple installation of an amazing instrument. The Cosmic Origins spectrograph.
It splits ultraviolet light coming into the telescope into its component colors that will allow us to understand the physics of the universe and the structure of the universe. How was it made? And that's a new capability that we've never had before.
The Cosmic Origin spectrograph now in the telescope.
The installation went without a hitch. But now Feustel and Grunsfeld were faced with a tough technical challenge never before attempted in space.
In past Hubble servicing missions, we always had replaced things. If the light bulb doesn't work on the refrigerator, you replace the whole refrigerator. You don't change the light bulb. And what had happened in the case of the Advanced Camera for Surveys was not just replacing something, but actually repairing on site with special tools an instrument that was never intended to be repaired in space.
The camera circuitry had failed. Fixing it meant taking the instrument apart, screw by screw.
Okay, John, sounds good. And the elevator drive lock.
You're doing a very delicate operation, but you're doing it with a big spacesuit on and big gloves. It's like trying to operate maybe with boxing gloves on. You can't even rub anything because microscopic particles might come loose and cause trouble for the telescope.
Okay, copy. Number 1 is in the bag.
Despite the difficult working conditions, they got it done in record time.
Maneuver a little better.
Planet Houston for EVA, we have a good aliveness test on ACS.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Low voltage power supply.
The repair of the advanced camera for surveys will allow us to look deeper into the universe than we've ever looked before. And by looking further back, we're going to see, hopefully, the clues about the very first galaxies that were formed.
You guys are looking great in the airlock. Great job today to John and Drew.
The string of problems that had plagued the mission appeared to be over. As the crew checked off one challenge after another, Mike Massimino faced a milestone in his career as an astronaut.
Hey, great, Ray. Thanks very much. And you got the nose sweep.
It was going to be my last spacewalk, and it was going to be my last spacewalk for some time, and maybe that was going to be it. It was pretty much a mix of emotions going to bed that night.
It was day 7 of Atlantis' mission to Hubble. The astronauts had only 2 days left with the telescope, barely enough to complete all the complex repairs. Mike Massimino and Michael Good were trying to fix the power supply on Hubble's telescope imaging spectrograph. This instrument is used to hunt for black holes in far-off galaxies. To get at it, Mike had to remove a handrail. This should have been simple enough.
That handrail is obstructing the attachment of the fastener capture plate.
But the handrail would not come off.
3 of the 4 screws come out easily, but this one screw on the lower stanchion on the right side, I could not get that thing to loosen up.
I don't think it's coming out.
Try to drill that thing out. Yeah, it's like they're not sure if the drill bit's going to do anything. Okay.
The Hubble Space Telescope is arguably the greatest scientific instrument ever built.
You just want to keep the bit straight in there.
There was a certain degree of stress associated with this.
It's not moving, Drew.
After hours of thinking it over, NASA decided to go for a low-tech approach.
What we're considering is pulling at the very top of the handrail to actually bend that bolt and potentially shear it off in the lower right.
But using brute force in space is a high-risk strategy.
I just want to make sure that we're not yanking at something and then we're going to hit him on the head or something like that. So
I don't want any little bits shooting off into a suit, right? That darn handrail.
I was worried about debris being kicked up. If I busted this thing, who knows how clean it's going to break. It's going to create maybe a sharp edge. It creates trouble. I didn't want my kids going to school and learning that their dad had destroyed the future of astronomy.
As Mike prepared for the riskiest act of his spacewalking career, the telescope entered a communications blackout at 28,000 kilometers per hour. For 2 minutes, the shuttle could not transmit any live pictures to the ground.
The thought that went through my mind was, let's do this right now while they can't see. In some ways, I was kind of happy that they couldn't see what was going to happen, just in case it didn't go as cleanly as we planned.
There we go. That's off. Disposal bag, please.
I breathed the biggest sigh of relief when that handrail snapped off cleanly.
And man, good news, the sun is coming up.
Hours behind schedule, Mike could finally start the delicate repairs.
It's all yours. You got it? I have it.
But as soon as he began, he had to stop.
Stand by, Mike. The tool's not spinning, and it looks like the power is off.
We haven't even started any of the stuff we had worried about for 2.5 years. And wouldn't you know it, the power tool stops working. We had another power tool that we could use in the airlock, and I just went back and fetched it. The instrument could have changed color. It could have probably went on fire. I don't think there's anything that could have happened out there that would have made me flinch after the trauma I went through with that handrail.
But if Mike thought his troubles were over, he was wrong.
A1 is complete.
As he finished his repair, he made a chilling discovery.
Okay, thank you.
There was a tear in his space glove.
It could be a pretty dangerous situation. You have a limited air supply, and if you get a leak, you could evacuate that air supply fairly quickly. I report it and show it into my helmet camera.
There's a hole in the cloth.
Yeah, John, just for clarification, could you let us know whether it looked like a tear or a cut on Mass's glove?
Although Mike could detect no loss of pressure, his crew had seen enough.
Think I want to bring these guys in at the end of this task. Do you guys concur?
Yeah, no, you bet.
Luckily for Mike, the tear didn't penetrate all the way through to the skin, but he knew that this had been a close call.
The vent duct is in.
I think I might have set a record for prayers said during the spacewalk. I really think
They were being echoed here in the cabin.
It was unbelievable. And it was Sunday, which was appropriate. I got dispensation from Father Dominic that I didn't have to go to church yesterday because I was up here.
I think you're going to have to see the Pope when you come back, though.
I think I need all the help I can get.
Alongside prayer, the crew were relying on one of NASA's greatest astronauts and astronomers for the success of the final spacewalk.
I think it was very fitting that John Grunsfeld was going to be out there. He had spent more time at Hubble than any other person. He does love the telescope and what it can do.
And under Grunsfeld's expert guidance, the process went smoothly.
Coming away from the telescope slowly. Slowly away.
The team replaced a fine guidance sensor, one of 3 highly precise instruments that lock the telescope onto distant heavenly objects. With the guidance sensor installed, there was one last thing to do.
I'm ready to go.
Warm Hubble up with paneled thermal protection blankets.
This will complete all of the tasks. The final spacewalk to service the Hubble Space Telescope is complete.
It took 5 of the most demanding spacewalks ever made, but the repairs to Hubble were a total success.
And Atlantis' airlock now repressurizing.
Guys, how was it?
Yep, we put the FGS in, fine guidance sensor.
Right.
And we wrapped Hubble in a blanket.
You wrapped it in a blanket and kissed it goodbye.
Yep, literally.
And kissed it goodbye, gave it a kiss goodbye.
Yes.
The crew of Atlantis were Hubble's final visitors, the last of thousands of scientists, engineers, and astronauts who've worked on the telescope over more than 30 years.
Tap free scooter.
Free drive.
I'm in end effector mode.
Hubble had been successfully fixed, but there was another issue. 10 days earlier, Atlantis had been hit by debris on launch.
Safely back on its journey.
If the shuttle was to make a successful re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, it needed to withstand temperatures of 1,650 degrees Celsius. Now, the crew had to survive this ordeal with a damaged heat shield.
I'm going to select
5 seconds. The mode switch is in auto. 3, 2, 1, release.
The new and improved Hubble Space Telescope was back in business.
Oh, baby, look at that.
31.
There it is, Scooter.
35.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to see Hubble, the most famous scientific instrument of all time, newly upgraded and ready for action thanks to you.
Hubble, prepare for glory.
Excellent, excellent. Hubble, prepare for glory.
After having done such a good job, the crew awaited the customary congratulations from their boss.
Floating in attention.
Atlantis?
Good evening, sir. Atlantis is here standing by. How are things in Washington?
Doing great, like a lot of Americans.
I think you're just providing a wonderful example of the kind of dedication and commitment to exploration that represents America.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Did you guys see my house? I'm trying to figure out if my lawn is getting mowed there. I haven't been back for a couple of months.
We'll have to point Hubble at it to see that.
The team that we get to work with is what makes the Hubble experience special.
Great job. I was thrilled, of course, that the President of the United States had taken the time out of his day to talk to us. It was great. You know, something I'll never forget.
That was so cool.
Way to represent.
What?
You guys are awesome.
We want to come for dinner.
With the president's call over, it was finally time to think of going home. But getting there would be the most dangerous part of the mission. 10 days earlier, during the launch, Atlantis had suffered damage to her heat shield. Now the crew had to inspect it again and decide if it could survive the white heat of re-entry.
Plate inspections and the nose cap of the reinforced
We did a late inspection, and the shuttle was cleared for re-entry, and we were cleared to come back. Since the Columbia accident, it's always in the back of our minds that it's a pretty dangerous thing you're going to do. It's going to build up a lot of heat, and all that's ahead of us coming through the atmosphere to make it down safely.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go home. Here we go, we're getting ready to go. Last chance for romance.
Even if they did survive, bad weather in Florida meant that their preferred landing site was unavailable.
Current observation, thunderstorms within 30. Thunderstorms within 30.
The shuttle continued orbiting, using up precious food, water, and air.
Okay, folks, we are formally waving up from the Cape. We're going to keep Edwards targets on board.
Now the crew of Atlantis braced themselves for the most dangerous part of their epic mission.
Okay, Houston, we copy that. We'll go into Edwards.
We're a little anxious about what's about to happen. We've got to stick to the task and be professional, and we've got a big task in front of us.
Airline pressure max, are we seeing it increase, or is this just right at the limit? It's just right at the limit, and then the whole flight. All right, copy.
The shuttle's battered heat shield had withstood the searing temperatures of re-entry. The crew were coming home.
It's kind of cool when you break through the atmosphere and you're coming over the Pacific Ocean. You can see the west coast of the United States. And it was a beautiful day.
Gears down and locked. Baker, touchdown. Copy.
After 2 weeks and 8.5 million kilometers, the last mission to Hubble was over.
Welcome home, Atlantis. Congratulations on a very successful mission. It took a whole team across the country to pull it off. Our hats are off to you all. Thank you so much.
I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was ambitious what we were trying to do. I didn't think the odds were in our favor that we'd get everything done successfully.
We would never know that what was out there if it wasn't for Hubble taking us there.
And that's what I think we've left behind. The telescope that's just going to unlock the wonders and the secrets of the universe for generations to come.
3 months after their epic mission, NASA released these pictures from Hubble's new cameras. Images that mark the start of a brand new age of discovery.